Hello and welcome everybody to the Pokerfuse podcast. It is October 24th, 2019. I'm your host, Mike Gentili, along with my co-host, Nick Jones. Today on the podcast, with the busy fall season underway, the online poker industry is kicking into high gear and operators are ramping up their tournament offerings. We'll take a look at the latest from iPoker, Party Poker, and PokerStars. Pennsylvania has released revenue figures for its second full month since launching online slots and casino games. We'll take you through some of the top-line numbers and see how they stack up to the early days of the New Jersey market. And to wrap things up, we'll introduce Samantha Bevington to the podcast to talk about her interview with professional poker player Daiva Byrne and some issues facing women in poker today.
So the autumn period marks the beginnings of kind of the high season in online poker. It kind of kicks off around the time of the big September tournament festivals, which we talked about in the podcast a few weeks ago. And what we also see is operators kind of rethinking some of their weekly tournament schedules, their regular kind of offerings and promotions to get ready for, this busier period. So in the last week, we have seen iPoker release a new weekly schedule and revamp that. We've seen Party Poker continue with a flurry of activity, again focused on tournaments with a whole new weekly tournament schedule, which has got quite a lot of people talking, a new satellite system, and a new $1 million guaranteed tournament, Sunday tournament. And we also will take a look at PokerStars, who might have some decisions to make themselves with their Sunday Million tournament.
Wow, there's quite a lot of things on the plate there for us to talk about. Which of those things, Nick, do you think is most significant and or most exciting?
Well, I think we'll do them in order if they were announced, because the OPEC story perhaps is not the most significant, although it's interesting to see them kind of reawaken from quite a long period of time where we've heard nothing out of the network. And they did a bit of PR in the last couple of weeks. They ran a new tournament festival. They ran a couple this year, but they've been really, really quiet. I haven't really talked them up at all. This time around, they released a new brand called Dojo Series. I think it was their first progressive knockout-only tournament series, or at least one branded in that way. I think that's ongoing now. And then they followed this up with a new weekly tournament schedule, which I believe came into effect at the beginning of this week or perhaps next week. It's good. The main takeaway there is just to see them kind of rethink their offering and re-strategize their offering, because sometimes it's easy to forget that they're out there and still, the top online poker network and a lot of big brands on their network. The main thing they've done, it's kind of hard to gauge how much, what players are really going to benefit from this. They haven't, it's not like all of a sudden they're guaranteeing twice as much as they did before, but it seems like they have a fairly, they've rethought the consistency of the schedule. There's a lot more tournaments on it in general, particularly at the low end. In the micro stakes, which for iPoker, micro stakes is under a euro. They've, I think, more than doubled the number of tournaments. I think they will have, just get the numbers here, over 400 tournaments a week at the €1 or less level, which is more than double than what they have in their existing schedule. And for the tournaments under €10, that's increased by another, I think, 40 or 50%. I think there's like 700 now on the schedule. So they've added a bunch more to the schedule to try and appease some lower stakes players.
Yeah, it does seem like it's been quite a while since we've talked about iPoker, and specifically about tournaments over at iPoker. I can't help but wonder if this is a result of MPN closing down. We talked about a couple of weeks ago that MPN, Microgaming Poker Network, is winding things down, coming to an end. They were the other big online poker network outside of iPoker, and it's yet to be determined where some of those rooms are actually going to end up, and perhaps iPoker is doing what it can right now to try and look attractive to those rooms and hoping to boost its overall numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it would certainly make sense that, there's over a dozen skins are looking for a new home. iPoker is clearly the obvious choice for a lot of them. Without getting to this topic in too much detail, maybe in a future podcast we can dive a bit more into that. But yeah, I think it would absolutely be smart to revamp their offer, because I imagine conversations are ongoing now with some of the top brands about bringing them over to their network. So yeah, that was iPoker's news, and good to see them just kind of reinvigorated and re-looking at their offer. And then Party Poker came with their announcement. I mean, it's hard to keep pace with the announcements that they have. I think maybe their own PR team struggles to keep pace with their announcements, and a lot of the information will come from Rob Young's Twitter feed, where he'll throw out almost like a live blog update and with pretty sweeping changes.
And he's getting out ahead of the PR team, you think? Yeah. I
mean, that's definitely our primary source of information at the moment, and maybe a few days later we'll get kind of the official stuff in the inbox. So that's definitely currently the first channel. So what's come out in the last week or two? The major one is a complete overhaul of their weekly MTT schedule. It's hard to break down exactly what's changed and compare it from before or after. I'd say the top line is it seems almost unanimous that everyone thinks it's an improvement and everyone's welcomed the change, which is nearly impossible to do, because you look at a weekly tournament schedule, you're trying to appeal to such a broad spectrum of players. People who like freeze-outs, people who want games to start early so they don't run on too late, people who want obviously big guarantees, people who want high rollers, people who want multiple re-entries, people who just like freeze-outs. I mean, trying to get all of them saying that your revamp is great, and oh no, you didn't, you forgot about the tiny niche that I like. My Omaha high-low tournament is no longer running at 6 p.m, so I won't be able to play it or whatever. All I've seen so far is people welcoming the changes, so that alone is an impressive feat. I will say it seems much more cohesive, their offering, similar to what we just said about iPoker. I think they have kind of 3 or 4 clear brands, a bounty brand, a turbo brand, and a hyper brand that run, I think, like every hour or something like that. So I think it's just more predictable. They have 3 days a week dedicated to certain types. Yes, they've got Deep Stack and Bounty Hunter brands. They run every 60 minutes. I think that's throughout the week. They've generally tried to address tournaments running on too late, so they either start earlier or have slightly faster structures. So even if you run deep, you're not still playing at 6 in the morning. And I think they've been pretty aggressive with their guarantees. I think they've, one way to get everybody saying the schedule is great is if people think that there's a lot of value and a lot of overlays in these tournaments. Yeah. So again, I won't say we haven't done a deep comparison between before and after, and often it's very tricky because you're looking at literally thousands of tournaments. But my gut here is that there's a lot of value, particularly in the high rollers. I think that they have been really ambitious with the guarantees they've slapped on them. So.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, speaking of big guarantees, the press release that came out today was the announcement of the return of the Poker Million with a $1 million guarantee. Now, that PR came out today, but I also did notice that we had reported on that previously on Poker Industry Pro, so it wasn't perhaps new to everyone.
Yeah, so this was... Again, going back to what we said at the start of this is Rob Young first on Twitter running a poll going, how crazy would it be if we ran a $1 million Sunday tournament just like the old days? Would you play it? And then a week later, there's Rob on Twitter saying it's going to run. And then you say a week after that, the PR team can finally get caught up. And this is no criticism of them. I think just trying to keep pace with everything they're doing is difficult. So yeah, it is... in some respects, a direct shot at PokerStars, and so we'll touch on that in a bit. But the top line here is I think it's just a one-off. It's definitely obvious they're not saying this is going to be every Sunday.
So that's the question I have, because the actual press release is titled "Party Poker Announces Return of Weekly 1 million Guaranteed Party Poker Million." But if I look through the contents of this press release, they're talking about multiple day ones that stretch over, I think it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, so I'm reading the website here, so I'm behind the times here. The website says the Party Poker Million will run weekly starting October 27th. So okay, so they are planning to run it weekly. Yeah, they have 4 day ones starting on Sunday. So they're going to have one Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then Sunday. And then with the day 2 starting that same Sunday. So on a Sunday, you've both got a day 1A for next week's and day 2 of the current week's tournament. So yes, they are. Yeah, they're absolutely. I don't know if this is. Yeah, I think when we wrote our article, it was based on what Rob had tweeted, and it was just going to be okay. We're going to try this once. That's certainly the impression we got. But no, it seems like they're going to try this on a weekly basis. This is fascinating. So okay, yeah. So it's a $215 buy-in tournament, which is technically a freeze out. So in that respect, it's a direct shot of what PokerStars have done, which is they've reduced their iconic Sunday Million to a 109 buy-in tournament, and it allows 3 re-entries. But of course, this is 4 day ones, and you can enter every day one. So in many respects, in my mind, it allows 3 re-entries because you can enter every day. Right. But those individual day 1 flights are freeze out. But you can, so you can have 4 shots at them. I assume the last day one's going to be a turbo because it starts at 4 p.m. They've structured it so it doesn't run on till 6 in the morning, which is a common complaint of the PokerStars Sunday Million. So this is actually a huge play. I was thinking this is a one-off. This is a fascinating attempt from Party Poker to directly target what PokerStars is doing.
So outside of the first week, there are going to be 2 of these tournaments running every week, one with a day 1 and the other which will be concluding that weekend. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, so every Sunday you're going to have a day 1D for like a turbo, and then day 2 starting at 7 p.m. that will run through into the early morning. And also you'll have a day 1A starting at 8 p.m. For the next Sunday. So in theory, you could be sitting there playing, a turbo day 1D that enters day 2, and then you could start your next week's progress with a day 1A at the same time. That's pretty smart. So so if you're a grinder, you can be playing 2 Party Poker Millions, one this week deep in day 2, and the next one starting your journey for the next week. That's really interesting. I'm not sure if anyone has done that before.
Well, I haven't seen it. Yeah.
So that's smart. As you say, it's a $215 buy-in tournament. They're saying the last time that Party Poker ran $1 million weekly tournament was 13 years ago. A fascinating shot, and we will see the first one is running now. So we're recording this on a Thursday. So day 1C is running this evening, and this Sunday will be the first day 2, and we will see how many entries that gets.
So my question is, do you think that is this a zero-sum game? Are they going to be competing with PokerStars here, or are they going to be boosting the overall interest in big guaranteed tournaments on a Sunday?
Yeah, and this is a theme that we talk a lot about whenever we talk about MTTs, which is kind of unlike cash games. It almost feels like you want high volume players, and you feel it can be somewhat additive to your competitors. So if someone else is running a tournament, you can ride on those coattails a bit, because the big grinders are more than happy to also fire up your tournament in addition to the PokerStars tournament. And so there's always some kind of symbiotic relationship. With that said, though, there are a huge number of players out there, casual players, who want to play one $100 or $200 buy-in tournament a week, and they will decide, which do I prefer? Which structure do I prefer? Right. Which do I find more prestigious? Which has fishier players, or which has the software I prefer? So there's absolutely going to be people out there making the call, saying like, oh, do I want to play PokerStars 109, or do I now want to try out Party Poker's Millions and take my money there? It's a direct shot, and it's a direct shot kind of what PokerStars has done in changing their Sunday Million, and it'll be interesting to see whether players take up Party Poker on their offer instead of what PokerStars are offering.
Yeah, and even if we look down the ladder a bit to those with even smaller bankrolls, they could be making decisions to what satellites they're going to play in, trying to get into these big tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, something we should talk about is that Party Poker are also running, in addition to a satellite schedule to the headlining Party Poker Million, they're also running a Micro Million and a Mini Million. So the Micro Million is a $2 buy-in tournament with a 20k guarantee, and the Mini is a 22 buy-in for a 200k guarantee. So that's an interesting choice, that those with smaller wallets can choose to either try and satellite into the big guy, or they have their own kind of pretty prestigious, and I'm just trying to see the schedules if they're structuring the Micro and Mini the same. Yeah, I think they are. They're also going to have 4 day ones. So, you can participate in that still same kind of big ticket event, but just with, all the numbers down 20, to 20% or 10% of the big guy. So it's a big offer from Party Poker.
Yeah, this is definitely something that we are going to want to revisit in a couple of weeks to see, what kind of success they've had with this. It sounds like it's going to be, I hope this is not overstating, it sounds like it's going to be a game changer. It sounds like this is really interesting and something that will capture the attention of players.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we can touch on briefly where PokerStars are with their Sunday Million and how that might be impacted and what they're doing as well. So as we mentioned, we talked about on this podcast in the past, they switched their Sunday Million to a $100 buy-in, but keeping the guarantee the same. So they need twice as many people, but obviously it costs half as much to enter. They've been doing this for 9 months now, something like that. And they're going into the high season now and maintaining that structure. There was some criticism about it losing its prestige, but at the same time, it obviously opens up to more players. What we've seen is that initially it was extremely successful. We saw numbers dwindling. We saw one overlay in the summer. It was a pretty substantial one. I think it was 10% plus overlay to this event. And then what we saw was PokerStars do... it's also switched to 3 re-entries. It used to be a freeze out years and years ago. They added a single re-entry, I want to say last summer, could be 2 summers ago, and now it's gone to 3 re-entries. And obviously the more re-entries you add, the easier it is to cover that guarantee, because people, if there's an overlay, people are going to want to re-enter to the point that there's no overlay anymore. Now what we saw over the summer after that overlay that they had is that they've ran it 3 or 4 times as a progressive knockout tournament. And in fact, we did an article at the beginning of this month where 3 of the last 4 that they had run had been progressive knockout tournaments. And every time they run it as a PKO, PKOs are bizarre in that lots of people criticize them. They don't want to play bounty tournaments. It changes the game quite a lot. But the reality is they are very successful. And every time PokerStars tried a PKO Sunday Million, turnout was huge. It would go 20-30% over the guarantee consistently. Every time they did it, they saw a bump. Without it, they just about, so last Sunday they got like 200 or 300 entries over what they needed, so like 2% over, 3% over or something. So it's right on the line there of just covering the guarantee. When they do a PKO, it's thousands over.
So just let me interrupt, Nick. So just for those listeners that may not know what a PKO is, or progressive knockout, tell us a little bit about how that works.
Okay, so yeah, any kind of knockout tournament works that everyone has, some part of your buy-in goes on your head, and if somebody knocks you out, then they win that as a bounty. A progressive means that if you win someone's bounty, you win some of that, but some of that goes on your head. And traditionally, it's 50-50. So I know you've got $50 on your head, you knock someone out, you take $25 as prize for knocking that person out, but then 25 gets added to your head. So the more people you knock out, the more people want to try and knock you out, to the point that when you get to the final table, everyone's got big bounties on their head, so knocking people out is as valuable as going deeper in the tournament. So it's a fun novelty that has become a huge part of the schedule. Right at the start of this segment, we talked about iPoker. They just run a PKO exclusive tournament series. Every operator now has some brand for a PKO exclusive tournament series. iPoker's weekly schedule is now heavily PKO. Party Poker's has been for a long time. PokerStars is right now running their Bounty Builders PKO exclusive tournament series with 25 million guaranteed. So it's an absolute top tier brand now for them. So everyone's got this. And yeah, the Sunday Million, as I say, has been run by PKO, and every time they do, it's very successful because people love playing progressive knockouts. And PokerStars will be sitting there every week going like, why scrape by just covering when we run it as a PKO? People absolutely love it. The thing is, you do that, that's going to play in Party Poker's hands, because they'll say we run the only kind of traditional proper Sunday million style tournament, so come to us. So, and it comes down to this. Does PokerStars want to be principled about it and think long term and think, no, this is like a prestigious brand, it's this kind of tournament? Or do they go, no, let's do what the players want right now, and what they clearly want is PKOs, and that brings in thousands more players, so let's do that.
The state of Pennsylvania, while they still don't have online poker, has come out with revenue figures for their second full month of interactive gaming. Interactive gaming, as defined by the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board, includes online slots, online table games, and poker. And while we still don't have poker, the numbers coming out do seem to indicate that perhaps Pennsylvania is not performing as well as its neighboring state, New Jersey, did when they first launched. Nick, have you taken a look at some of the numbers that have come out?
No, I haven't really. So tell me, I mean, before we dig into the numbers, like who is operational for casino games in Pennsylvania and sports betting, and how do the two compare, those two verticals?
Well, we'll take a look at the casino numbers right now. Sports betting, there's quite a few operators there. For casino, we only have 3. There's Hollywood Casino, Parks, and Sugar House. And while online sports betting is vastly more successful than the casino game counterparts, it's not something that we can compare to the same period in New Jersey. So when New Jersey launched, they did not have the online sports books, or land-based sports books for that matter, to compete with their casino games. And that is one of the big differences in the two markets, making it much more difficult to compare, from one state to the next. But it's a feature that, along with not having online poker, for example, is one of the things that is a difference maker from one market to the other.
Okay, so if we just look at online casino, then month 1 and month 2 in Pennsylvania, how much lower is it compared with month 1 and month 2 in New Jersey that we saw 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, so the total. So when New Jersey launched, they launched toward the end of November in 2013. And Pennsylvania, we saw launch mid-month in July. So if we look at the second full month, which is only maybe about a week or two difference between the two markets, so pretty comparable, we can look at the total that has been produced by online casinos. And what we see that was in New Jersey, there was a total of $11 million in total produced from online casinos in New Jersey after their second full month, which is very different from the total we see in Pennsylvania, which is at 8.4. While you would say 8.4 million compared to 11 million, maybe it's not that different. The difference comes in with the size of the population. New Jersey has 70% of the population of Pennsylvania, and yet produced 30% more revenue over a similar period of time. That, to me, is quite significant.
Okay, yeah, so to put it another way, per capita, New Jersey is well outperforming Pennsylvania.
Yeah, they are.
Do you think, do we think that's because, New Jersey had a better coordinated launch with operators, so there was more marketing, advertising drive, and again, it was coordinated with a poker launch, or do you think there are other factors involved there?
Yeah, so both of those are big, huge factors. One of the things is that we look at in an article that will be posted soon on Pokerfuse is just that. We look at the time of year, for example, that both markets launched. Pennsylvania launched in the dead of summer, not particularly a high time for online gaming, whereas New Jersey had the benefit of December and January being its first 2 full months to generate revenue, a time when people are more likely to be indoors. So that's one factor. No poker. That's a big factor. Someone might look at that and say, well, poker might serve to compete with the online casino games, but poker is viewed by operators as more of an ability to cross-sell. It's a player acquisition tool that Pennsylvania doesn't currently have that New Jersey had at launch. And yeah, as you mentioned, marketing dollars is another big thing. With the launch in New Jersey, 6 online casinos went live right away compared to the 3 that we see here in Pennsylvania. And while you don't have players competing for seats at a virtual slot machine, you do have less money overall flowing into the marketing of the new market that has come online, which is, the online casino games are available for people to play. So those are some of the factors. And as we touched on earlier, sports betting. I think that while poker is more of a player acquisition tool, I don't think sports betting has the same kind of cross-sell. At least we haven't seen evidence of such yet. And the popularity of sports betting, particularly online sports betting, I think definitely has had a negative impact on the overall revenue that we've seen come out of Pennsylvania for their online casino games in the first 2 months.
Yeah. I mean, it speaks to me just about how, I suppose, comparatively, how well New Jersey did. And again, so going back, it's in fact close to 6 years, right? If we're saying 2013 that the market opened, then how well they did in just coordinating a launch. I remember when, obviously we were mostly focusing on the online poker, but we had half a dozen brands launching 3 or 4 networks overnight. They came online with casino offers. This is the first time really that it happened. I know we'd had Nevada prior, but the first time that we had a real open market, and they managed to coordinate, operators, geolocation tools really for the first time, and dealing with the border issues that you have in that state so close to other states, payment providers and credit cards and the issues there, affiliates as well, which were regulated really for the first time, and that all happened relatively smoothly compared now, 6 years later. And definitely when we just look at poker, it seems like no one quite knows when we might see the first online poker room, whether the delay is at the regulatory side, at the testing side, at the operator end. The process has just been excruciatingly slow, as from the affiliate side as well. That whole process is extremely laborious and costly, and it's ultimately is coming out piecemeal, where before we had one big launch, there was advertising, there was investment. Now it's bit by bit. We have a sportsbook coming online here. We have a couple of, another casino comes online. Maybe poker will come next week. It's shambolic in comparison, really. And that's with 6 years of learning.
Yeah, don't get people excited that we're expecting poker next week. But yeah, you're right. It's given all the lessons that Pennsylvania could have built upon that came out of New Jersey 6 years earlier. It's a bit surprising that it has been this disjointed. And it could be all down to sports betting. It could be that all of the online gaming companies are putting their attention on what they think is going to generate them the most revenue, and that very well could be online sports. So there's other factors as well. I think back in when New Jersey launched, there was a lot more excitement in the U.S. overall for the advent of online gaming, where it was new. We were a lot closer, just a couple of years removed from Black Friday. So I think that people's expectations were high, but given that we went 6 years and didn't see another state come online, perhaps that excitement died down a bit. And then you throw in everything that happened this year with the Wire Act. I'm sure that has had some impact on online poker operators specifically, and their motivation to work through the process to get their products to market, because without the promise of joining up player pools with other states, perhaps they're thinking that just it may not be worth it.
Well, one more question for you, just going back to what you were saying, comparing New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I just wonder if another factor here is just New Jersey is a bigger gaming state. They have Atlantic City. They have all the big casino brands, and maybe it's just, although per capita revenues are a lot lower in Pennsylvania, maybe it's, the per capita of gamblers is actually it's not so different, just because there's so much more attention to that industry in New Jersey.
So Pennsylvania is they have had a very successful casino industry. I mean, they've been able to maintain with some of the highest taxes on casino games their land-based industry. It's been quite successful, so successful that the operators have not been afraid to expand into online gaming. They're both pretty big gaming states. And one thing, though, is, and I believe, and this is coming off the top of my head, I believe New Jersey is one of the richest states per capita. So maybe there's the factor that there's more disposable income in that state, and that has led to some of their success. But I'm just speaking from memory here. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe that New Jersey is one of the more richer states per capita. So that definitely could have played a part in their success with their online gaming.
It's not like Pennsylvania is on the low end of the spectrum when it comes to
right.
So,
and neighboring state as well. So it's not even like there's some regional differences that would play a big factor.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to reading all of that analysis on more in the Pokerfuse article coming up this week. So do go and check that out if you want a deeper dive into the numbers and analysis.
This week on Pokerfuse, we had an interview with professional poker player Daiva Byrne. It was conducted by our very own Samantha Bevington, who I would like to officially welcome to the podcast for the first time. Samantha, welcome.
Hi. Thanks, Mike. It's been a long time coming.
Yes. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you talked with Daiva about, and give the listeners a bit of a preview into what's in your article.
Yeah, so I met Daiva back in March. It was actually at a PokerStars event, and it was for International Women's Day, and she was just there as a member of the public, basically, as was I, and I just thought she was great. And she's such a lovely person, and beyond that, she's a great poker player, and she has set up an initiative called Fantastic Ladies in Poker, which is basically a closed Facebook group where she encourages women from all walks of life to play live poker. And she sees it as really important to get more women playing live events.
Ah, interesting. So I was reading the article, and there were a number of things that caught my attention. One thing in specific was that she had a number that jumped out at me, that I think it was 20% of online poker players are women. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what she said in the interview, that I think 15 to 20% of online players are made out of women, and online that's less than 10%. So I think to her it's really important to move the needle on that live event number to try and get more women into the game, basically.
Ah, yeah, that's interesting. And so she's a sponsored pro currently, correct?
Yes, she now is with Betson as a sponsored pro.
Okay. And she was recently in headlines, I think, from Battle of Malta. Yes, there was a ladies' event there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened, Sam?
So it made headlines on Twitter, definitely. So there was a ladies' event during the Battle of Malta, and the head honchos had come up with an idea that it would be great for the dealers to come out, who were all men without their shirts on.
So Chippendale style, huh?
Chippendale style, but maybe without the Chippendale body. From what I saw on Twitter, I wasn't there. Okay. But it backfired spectacularly. All the women that were playing that event seemed pretty annoyed that someone would think that would be appropriate during a ladies' event. And actually, Daiva was one, I think, of 3 women that during the first break that they got playing the tournament, they went and found someone and said, look, this is demeaning to both us and to the dealers. You really need to go and get them to put their shirts back on, which I think they did do. Wow. Which is good.
Yeah, kudos.
But I think it shocked everyone a little bit that that's something that would happen in 2019.
Yeah. So I saw a little bit of that unfold on Twitter. I didn't know that they actually were able to get them reclothed. But so that's sounds like a big win.
Absolutely. And sorry.
No.
I think it's good though as well that Daiva is not just, she's practicing what she preaches. She wants more women in poker, and she felt that was demeaning and degrading, and like I say, for both the dealer and for women. And she's just not on Twitter complaining about something. She's actually there on the ground trying to create change.
Yeah. So as I was watching it unfold, and I need to preface this by saying that I consider myself to be very pro women in poker. I think the game can only benefit from getting a more balance between the genders. So I'm definitely all for that. But I know that things are often controversial when it comes to how to achieve that. Or even if it should be achieved. I know that some people will push back against that notion on its own. For example, one thing is, should we have women-only poker tournaments? There was quite a debate. What was it, last year, between who? Do you remember? On Twitter.
I think if we're remembering the same thing, it was actually more than a year or so ago, and wasn't there a panel and it had Sarah Herring on it from Pokerfuse and a few other people, and they were all talking about women in poker and getting more live events. But maybe you're thinking of something else.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that there was quite, and I'm, women on both sides arguing for and against the idea of women-only tournaments. I know that when a group is underrepresented, there's often a move to try and segregate themselves in order to build it up. And I think that's what we're seeing with women in poker. They want to have their own tournaments so that women can feel comfortable and not be intimidated by men at the table. The opposite end of that argument is, hey, if you really want equality, then why are you having your own tournaments? I'm curious, where do you come down on that topic?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I too have seen a lot of women come out and say that women's only events are the wrong way to go. And people like Daiva are definitely saying that, no, it's a great way for women to start building their confidence. And actually, I'm with her on this. I think although we should live in a society where there aren't women's only events, and poker is one of those games where gender doesn't matter, I think having the confidence to go into a room full of strangers and them being all men and maybe feeling not very confident with your own poker skills and wondering how that's going to be at the table, like whether you're going to get pushback on that, whether you're going to feel welcome, whether people are going to basically take the piss or not. I think creating a safe space, which basically is what Daiva is doing. She's saying that we're creating this community and this really welcoming, safe environment for you to learn and to practice and to play and to win. I see the benefit in that, and to be honest, it's something, if I had more time, that I would love to do. Because although I feel like a confident person, I'm not confident in my poker ability, and then going and sitting at a table or walking into a casino floor with all men. I think I would like to get the experience under my belt to maybe do that with all women to start with, rightly or wrongly.
Yeah, I think I
can see the benefits in that.
I fall on the same side of that argument as you and Daiva. I do think there is a place. I think that in order to build up the number of women, which I see as a perfectly fine objective, but in order to do that, I think we do have to have these, I don't know, incubators or nurturing environments that allow that growth to happen, because without it, it's going to take a lot longer if it happens at all. I don't always agree with things that I see. I know that even for this Battle of Malta thing, the way that it was framed, I don't know. I just thought it could have been done better. It was framed as a woman's issue, you know, and I think that having a half-naked dealer at the table is offensive to everybody. You know, I don't think it's only the women that would be offended there. And if it were a men's tournament and there was a half-naked woman as a dealer, I think it would equally has been looked upon as offensive. And even if there was a half-naked man, I guess I don't see it as gender-specific to be offended by the introduction of sex as a promotional tool in poker. And I just feel like while it was framed that way for this particular incident, I think what that did is that allowed those people that may be against the movement or against increasing the number of women in poker, it gave them ammunition to push back against. Whereas if you had presented that as, and not you personally, and not anybody personally, but if it was presented more as an issue with poker in general, I think it would serve to potentially alienate less people and be more inclusive.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I think with this matter specifically, because it happened at a ladies-only event, and it hadn't happened at any of the other events that were running during the Battle of Malta, it became a woman's issue because they basically made it one.
Right.
I think if it had happened before, even after, yes, we would be talking more broadly about how inappropriate that is. Like, imagine if you were a dealer and like 5 minutes before told you need to take your shirt off. I mean, it would be awful. It's awful, whoever and whatever. I just think in this particular instance, because it happened at a ladies' event, they made it a women's issue.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big employment issue. Your employer tells you have to take your shirt off to go to work. Yeah, that's a big issue on its own. But I have no idea what the laws are over there in Malta, so I can't even begin to comment on that one. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting week and a very timely article. So if you haven't had a chance to read it, go over to Pokerfuse and take a look. And we look forward to more from you to come, Sam.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Well, that wraps up this episode of the Pokerfuse podcast. As a reminder, please give us a like and a subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also follow us and interact with us on Twitter. Nick is at PokerProJones. I'm at SpookyBugs. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.